by then. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the... Nick, there's no way to start the show attacking me unprovoked like that.
I coughed.
Can't even get a word in.
if you read into my cough on the subconscious level, that's on you, buddy, not me.
That was my dad's thing. Like when I was a kid, all the time he'd do the bullshit cough. Like as soon as someone said something he didn't quite agree, he's like bullshit, like that. And that was ingrained in my mind. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Woke Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here, joined as always by Nick Sutherland from Myndfit. Nico, how are you, mate? Apart from your cough.
Excited to have another Nick on the show. So 2 Nicks are better than 1. And,
I'm gonna go Nico and Nick. That'll help me kind of distinguish. So we do have a wonderful guest on. We have Nick Bracks, author, actor. What else, Nick? Mental health advocate.
Underwear person.
Underwear model. Just any more, Nick, or not?
I don't know. I'll try and think of a few more while we're talking. A few more labels I can slap on myself.
You'll learn pretty quick, Nick, that we do very limited research on the show. We like to keep it organic. We're not lazy. We really like to keep it organic. But I agree. I did do 3.5 minutes of research a couple of weeks ago when I thought you were coming on the show. And your Wikipedia page said all these things, and then and his own underwear range, and I'm like, right, this will be interesting. What do we got going on here? So, where do you want to start? You've got all these things going on, all these balls in the air, or not in the air because they're supported by your underwear.
Well played.
So,
well played. Well, Nick, go for it, mate.
We'll give you that one, mate. But yeah, they go perfectly hand in hand, don't they? Mental health and underwear. That's like just it's meant to be. But no, the underwear is a long time ago. That was like 11, 12 years ago. I am not running the underwear label anymore and not posing in underwear anymore, which I'm very happy, saving people from the discomfort of seeing that. I'm not quite in the shape I was back then. So very happy to hang up the underwear modeling. I've hung up the dancing. I've hung up all these bloody things. I'm just doing mental health. I'm even having a break from acting. So trying to maintain my own mental health and helping mental health is basically what I'm doing at the moment. But just to give you a quick sort of overview of what I'm actually doing. I'm in New York. I won a green card a while back. I was back in Australia for the pandemic, living in Vancouver before that. Moved to New York to set up the green card and bring some of the work over here. And I've just launched a book and with my company, Move Your Mind. It's basically about education and using different media platforms to do that, from creating programs and doing talks and having the podcast and the book and, another project we're working on. So it's all sort of, that's keeping me more than busy enough. And that's what I'm doing right now.
Maybe just a little bit of backstory, Nick, like why mental health? Like some people listening in Australia may or may not have heard of you, some haven't, but why mental health? Why this field? Why are you so passionate? Why are you writing books and putting all this education out there to help people with their mental health?
Yeah, definitely. And similar to your story, Ryan, it's I fell into it really from personal experience, and I'm not from a psychology background, and I didn't actually plan on getting into the mental health work, but as far back as I can remember as a kid, I had issues with OCD, overthinking, anxiety, compulsive behavior, and that manifested in a whole range of areas, and most prominently in wanting to be a professional athlete, originally wanting to play AFL, training at a crazy level, becoming so fit through that I started winning all of the middle distance running races, then decided that I wanted to channel it all into that. And that very quickly became a complete obsession, or an addiction, actually, where I was, as an 11-year-old kid, training 6-7 hours a day, doing crazy things, hiding it from my parents, getting up and at 2 a.m. sometimes and hiding bricks under my bed and doing, all these crazy exercises. And, looking back, it didn't make sense. And the reason I was doing it, because my mind was just going at 1,000,000 miles an hour and I didn't know how to process it. I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to talk about it or understand this area. So I had these crazy behaviors coming about. And as I got older, that got fueled because I grew up with a well-known father. He was the Premier of Victoria from when I was 12 till my early 20s. And I was trying to prove myself, and I was looking at how do I do something on an extreme level to, prove that I'm enough as well. I'm not just, the son of this person, as I was referred to for, the 10 years of my life. And basically, by the time I finished at school, I had social issues, hadn't developed because I'd isolated myself. I had insecurity issues, and my body had broken down, and I just became lost, had no self-esteem, dropped out of university, started drinking, and that became a severe coping mechanism where I'd be drinking sort of 4 or 5 nights a week to a completely self-destructive level, getting in life-threatening situations on a weekly basis a lot of the time. And I mean, I won't go into all of the incidents because there's too many, but the main one, I'd been out with a group of friends and had my best friend in the back of the car and ended up wrapping a car around a tree, almost killing the two of us, or both of us. Yeah, we're very lucky to survive it. But we did, and there's no long-term damage from it, but it was sort of one of the catalysts, and it went on for a long time. But eventually, when I started working through it, I was modeling at the time, and then on a reality show, and wanted to help in the area, and started using my voice to talk about my story. And that really was where it started. And I just saw it very early on. All I did was, at the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing, but I'd go to a school and just be vulnerable and talk about what I went through. And every single time I'd have teachers, emailing me, I'd be hearing from kids saying they wouldn't have got the help if they didn't hear that. And I was like, wow, this is, we need to talk about this. And this is helping me as well by talking about it, which I always talk about, being selfish in your view as well, that it makes me feel good to try and feel like I'm helping in some area and talk about it. And if that helps people as well, that's great, looking at it both ways. So it's sort of, that was where it began, and it evolved to, what I'm doing now. So I'm trying to give you, without rambling on for too long, a bit of an abbreviated version of the story, because it would take me probably all the entire, hour we have here to tell you properly. But anyway, that's the quick overview of it.
Oh, it's good, but I'm struggling to find the link between your childhood and why you got into mental health. It seems like growing up in Ballarat to me. That's just a pretty normal sort of childhood. No, I do take the piss. It sounds like an epic journey and an epic story, and an all too familiar one. So many people would be able to relate to that, and to some part of that at least. And the racing mind, the not being in control of the thoughts, the acting recklessly, all that sort of behaviour. So it's great that you've honoured that journey, and honouring everyone else that's sort of going through a similar one, and coming to this space and trying to, same with Pass and myself. Trying to learn from our past and take the lessons and pass them on to other people. So thank you, and congrats on being able to achieve that.
I appreciate it. But, I think, and, like you're saying there, like it's a relatable thing. And, my story isn't unique. I mean, the circumstances are probably a bit more extreme than a lot of people, growing up how I did, and, being in the media and having all of those different things happen. But the core themes in it are universal, people having, feeling like they're in the shadow of someone, and questioning yourself, and self-esteem issues, and alcohol abuse, and all those sort of things. So who am I? So it's like, I just, like you guys, I think it's one of the most, if not the most powerful thing we can do, just to lead by example, be open, show vulnerability, especially as men, show vulnerability and share stories. It's like, it goes such a long way, and it's a simple thing, but it's also a hard thing to do. And if you haven't done it, it's difficult. And I often forget that, 10 years ago, I found it really confronting, and I've been doing it for so long now. I forget that if you haven't, confronted those things, it's really tough. But it is something that when you do share stories, it just helps so many people.
It's like a muscle, isn't it? That vulnerability. And it's something that comes up in the show quite a bit. And yeah, early on, when we haven't kind of exercised that muscle, it is so daunting. It is so confronting. We're so worried about people judging us or criticizing us, because if we lay ourselves open and bare, that's when criticism hurts the most. But when we are vulnerable,
you need to find that balance, though, Has, because a lot of people with lived experience that haven't healed, they go to the other end of that vulnerability spectrum and are just too out there with all their stuff, and they sort of force it onto people, and they become advocates, but to an unhealthy degree. And it's, but you have to do this, and you should do this, and there's this real intent behind what they're doing, but it's almost not to an aggressive point, but it's
got a compulsive feel to it, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And I've definitely seen that, but like that healthy expression is so important because, like you said, Nick, early on, when you started just to be vulnerable and go, maybe this will help one person, I'm not sure. And then you get all of that positive feedback from the teachers and everything saying, yes, it helped so many of the kids. Because when we're vulnerable authentically, it gives other people permission to do the same. And like I said, it's that muscle. And me and Nico talk about this a bit. And like you were saying, like we'll talk with someone not knowing that we're even, someone goes, oh, that was really vulnerable. I'm like, oh, was it? I was just talking, because that vulnerability muscle has been built up, over many, many years. And the other thing that jumped out for me when you were talking as well, one thing that we've brought up on the show, Nico, I'd like to get your thoughts. We've spoken about even exercise becoming this compulsive activity and something we can have a poor relationship with. And, hiding bricks under the bed, waking up at 2 a.m. doing curls. I think it's just a wonderful example for the listeners of a theme that we've spoken about in the past.
Well, I had the same thing. I was in the army, Nick, many moons ago, and I used to represent the army in the Defence Force Games in running. I was hyper fit and beat tests of 16 and all that sort of stuff, and it was. Yeah, I realised I was so codependent on running. So when I blew me out in the army and I could no longer run, there was that physical trauma, but there was this deep underlying trauma as well when I could no longer rely on my coping mechanism. It wasn't there. It made me happy, and it was a great outsourcing of happiness. And so many people fall into these coping mechanisms, but and the traditional ones are considered to be unhealthy, drugs, alcohol, gambling, food addiction, whatever. But a lot of people form unhealthy relationships with things that are considered to be healthy. And I was talking to a client just yesterday. She goes, "Oh, I realized I was drinking too much coffee and now I'm drinking green tea." I'm like, "How much are you drinking?" And she's like, "What do you mean? I'm drinking green tea. It's healthy." I'm like, "Yeah, but how much?" And she's like, "Oh, well, 4 or 5 a day." I'm like, well, "What's a healthy amount for your body to drink?" She's like, "Oh, I don't know." And she Googled it. I'm like, "Oh, two?" And I'm like, "Okay, so green tea is considered healthy, but it's an unhealthy relationship. You've gone past that point on the spectrum." So, yeah, it's really interesting to hear an 11-year-old, hiding bricks under the bed and having that unhealthiness. But do you understand now, looking back, like, do you look at that version of yourself with compassion, Nick, and do you understand where all of that was coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look back and feel for that kid, and it's a big part of why I'm doing the work I'm doing as well, because you don't get that education as a young kid, and if we did have this stuff sort of more widely taught and embedded into schooling, it probably would prevent a lot of things. But it's exactly what you said. It's that if you've got a tendency for that compulsive behavior, it's a difficult thing to manage. And I mean, I find it hard to this day. Like I want to do everything I do. I naturally want to do it on an extreme level because it feels good, or you want it, but that it's not healthy. So so it's about constantly maintaining that self-awareness and bringing yourself back into line, and looking at and I think being accountable as well, and having people around you that can keep you aware, keep you sort of in line, helps as well.
That's so
So
important.
finding that balance on a daily basis for you. And we've got a quote we use at Myndfit, and it's just because I can, it doesn't mean I should. And
Yeah.
so that just keeps in mind. All right, I can go for 3 or 4 runs a day, but I don't need to. I shouldn't. And Has, I'd like to get your insight on people talk about, I've got an addictive personality, or I'm an all or nothing person. Have you got much insight into is there such thing as an addictive personality, or is that a bit of a myth?
No, well, there is an addictive personality, but then where does that addictive personality come from and where is that formed? So I think when people say I have an addictive personality, it's like I was born with it and I have it and I will
Mm,
have it forever. So it's very fixed,
mm,
very deterministic. Whereas I would say an addictive personality is wired into our nervous system due to circumstances early in life. Now, just because our nervous system adapts in a certain way, It can be adapted to be too sympathetically charged or activated, or adapted to be more shutdown or freeze response without getting too technical. And so addiction or addictive personalities happen when we're stuck in one of those two states or bouncing through the two. So we use external means to try and regulate a dysregulated nervous system. Now, the beauty of us human beings, we can always change. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a job. Everyone who had mental health issues would be fucked forever, right? So we can, change the shape of our brain, neuroplasticity. We can rewire our nervous system. So to anyone who thinks they have an addictive personality, I like to say, well, let's work out where that came from and how we can readapt to a different way of living.
And it's important to not identify as that person anymore, isn't it, Nick? I'd love your thoughts on this. Do you still see yourself as that person and identify as how you were back then, or have you updated your belief system about yourself and see yourself through a different lens these days?
I definitely updated the belief system for sure. And, it's been through years of questioning things and having to confront things and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, it took a lot of work, but it's hard to manage because, you have that core system, but then on a daily basis, you're having to constantly bring yourself back into line because we're exposed to so many different bits of information, and people are asking you certain questions, and it's a difficult thing to keep that balance. But I try and remind myself that all the time about, I looked a long time ago at, I'm going to base every day on, what's really meaningful to me, what do I value, what's my purpose of, what I'm trying to do. And if that's not based on results, it's sort of a calmer, healthy feeling. But as soon as you're basing these external things on, I'm defined by whatever it is, or I need to achieve X to feel like I'm enough, then you get this yuck feeling in your gut, and that's, not the right thing. And that when you get there, you're going to just want more. And it's that addiction thing. So it's like the simple way I, diffuse that is just reminding myself, hang on, what's the reason I'm doing it? If every day, if I'm just trying to make, do something in the mental health realm to help, it might be one tiny thing, but I'm still moving towards, that cause, and things externally might not be going amazingly well for me. But as long as I'm doing something in line with that real mission that I care about, then that keeps you grounded. It's when you get caught up in all the other noise that you start to, lose control of things, and a lot of that addictive behavior comes out.
So it's really an active a mindfulness practice for you on a daily basis, isn't it? What mindfulness of where am I right now and what am I doing right now, and just sort of monitoring yourself in that space each day.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's sort of having that awareness, checking in with yourself, making sure that you're not sort of obsessing about certain things, or that you're staying on track with what you really want. And yeah, like I said, I think for anyone, we live in a pretty crazy world now. It's really hard to keep yourself grounded and stay in tune with, who you really are, unless you are conscious about it, because you wake up and you open your phone and you're exposed to so much noise from that moment you get out of bed, if you allow yourself to be, that it can, take your mind in 5,000 different directions, before you have a cup of coffee in the morning.
So true. You jump on that hamster wheel straight away and then spend the whole day on there and until the end, But it's really a check-in. It's really a check-in with your intent, isn't it? It's like checking in, but taking that moment to step off the wheel and go, hang on, is my intent right now in alignment with my core values? Yeah. Really beautiful.
And it's a line in the conscious and the subconscious mind. It's like, consciously, I'd like to be just moving mine throughout the day, but subconsciously, if it's a different kettle of fish, it's like, I have to do this and I have to do that, and it's going to be that misalignment is going to create so much conflict, and it's going to be really difficult and really challenging to self-manage and self-regulate. So, as you said earlier, doing the work is so important.
Absolutely, and it's hard, and I try and be honest about this stuff, and if I am honest, right now I'm going through a period where I'm really struggling, and I'm aware of it. But I'm getting caught up in so many things, and I'm like overcommitted right now. I'm in New York. It's expensive. I'm renting a place that's, costing me an arm and a leg. I'm launching this book between Australia and over here, and I've got a publishing company expecting me to do, 10 times the output of what I'm capable of. I've got the business I'm trying to run. I've got a new project I'm doing, and I'm trying to it actually is getting to a point where I'm like, I need to take a step back from things and simplify, because I've been getting back to that point of being overwhelmed. And I think it's important to talk about that, because, you know, I'm an advocate for this. I do work in the area, and I've been on this journey for a long time, and I have things I do to, you know, look after myself, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to continually, you know, go fluctuate, but which I think that's life, but it's how you deal with that, and how you sort of, you know, not allowing that to derail you, and, you know, being aware of it again, having that mindfulness about it.
That's so relatable for, I know, a lot of my clients, because we talk constantly. There's this constant narrative in Myndfit about, you know, we all have this. I don't know your thoughts on this, Has, but I use a lot of Buddhist philosophy, Nick, and so we tend to think everyone is a Buddha. We have an inherent Buddha nature. We are just love, you know, and then on top of that nature, we have our human nature, and then on top of that nature, we have our individual nature as well. So we have these tendencies, and if we have an aversion to who we are, if we don't like who we are, how our mind's working, we sort of reject it or hold it at bay, then it's very difficult to train it or develop it or do anything different with it. So when we can learn to love ourselves unconditionally and all our tendencies, and be mindful, like my tendency, you know, I'm too caring at times, I'm too giving, so I have to really check myself on that level and that department and go, oh, right, have I filled my cup today? Have I looked after myself? Because I tend to prioritize everyone else. So that self-love and that self-acceptance, but I think what I'm hearing with you is that realizing that those tendencies are always going to be there. You know, that's just your nature, and you have these tendencies, and they're not good or bad, they're not right or wrong, they're just part of who Nick Bracks is, and they're amazing, but when they're sort of kept in balance.
I love what you said there, and I've got one of my mentors that I check in with occasionally. He's incredibly successful and sort of does a million different things. He's worth about, I don't know, $300-400 million. Does all philanthropy work, a whole lot of crazy stuff. And I was sort of talking to him about a lot of that stuff, and he said to me, from when he was 20 years old and he didn't have a dollar in his pocket, to where he is right now, he doesn't feel any different on the day-to-day basis. Like, he still gets that same overwhelm, that same drive of, I need to do more. What's next? The mind churning. And he said, you know, a while back he realized, well, that's not going to go away. So it's okay. And, you know, whatever I achieve or do isn't going to make that go away. This thing, there's no solution to this thing apart from me acknowledging it. And when it comes up, just reminding myself, oh, my mind's doing that thing again. It's okay. That's not the solution. It never will be. And then you go back. And so it's like continual thing. And, you know, everyone's got a bit of that. I think some people have it maybe on more of an extreme level, but it, again, is not looking for this, you know, silver sort of bullet solution. It's like, there is no such thing. It's about every moment or every day, just checking in and reminding yourself it's okay. There's no sort of future thing or magical solution to this. I've just got to remind myself about what's important to me, and, you know, how to find that balance.
And it gets
We're
a
all
little
fucked
bit
up
more
to some degree. It's just keeping it to less of a degree.
But also, it's an important
degree,
point that you made as well, not fighting that, you know, fucked upness. It's like, because we spend time fighting that, which is going to actually enhance it and magnify it, where we can just sort of see it. Yeah, we see it. Okay, I see what you're doing there. You know, that part of Ryan or Nick or whatever it is, and then we move on. But what you're saying made me identify with a couple of years ago, because this is where the work can get kind of more nuanced as we go down the path. And I had a similar thing. Like, we had the center. You know, looking after staff, all the clientele, I had a newborn baby at home. So I was kind of like, you're checking my intent, and I'm like, hey, I'm living my purpose here. You know, I wanted to be a dad. That's my purpose. This, you know, making an impact in the mental health and addiction world. So I was living my purpose, but at the same time, I was pulling myself thin. I was just pulled in all these directions, and I was burning out. And so this is where we can get in trouble, because like, part of us will go, no, but you're on your path and your mission. This is what you said you wanted to do all those years ago. And then we keep going, but it's actually to our detriment if we run ourselves into the ground and we're pulled in too many directions and burn out. So sometimes it's making that hard decision to really pull back, which might be the period of life you're in now, Nick, where we just have to simplify, even though we want to say yes to everything, because in the long run, you know, us maintaining our energy is what's going to be best for that mission at the end of the day.
Absolutely. No, I think it's, and it is. It's very much a process I'm in now of refining things and I'm very clear on that at least. But it's like you're saying, you can, even if you do, that can become, compulsive, and then, it sort of, the same problem comes up. So it's again, just being aware of it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I'm very thankful that after my metanoia, I learned something really important, which is I can't help others if I'm not okay myself. And so that became the first fundamental in the Myndfit program, is looking after your mental, physical, and nutritional health, keeping it all in balance and in good shape. And something for me, it's just really simple, is as soon as I start hearing I have to in my internal narrative, that's a red flag for me. I have to do this, I have to do that, because it's not a energy that gets a healthy return on that investment. So it's okay. I don't have to, there's so much I can do, but I don't have to do it all. And so, right, what do I need to do right now? What is required of me? What is within my energetic bounds to achieve today, or my time constraints today? What can I do? Not what do I have to do, because that sends me way out of balance.
Or what do I get to do? What do I get to do today?
Yeah, it's an opportunity.
Different energy behind it.
Oh, I found this quote the other day, and it relates to this. It's from our old mate Ram Dass, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Nick, and then you, Hass. So he said, a lot of people try to counteract the "I am not good enough" with "I am good enough." In other words, they take the opposite and they try to invest it. That still keeps the world at the level of polarities. So the art is to go behind the polarities, so that the act is not to go into the world of "I am good" to counteract "I am bad" or "I am lovable" as opposed to "I am unlovable," but go behind it to "I am." And "I am" includes the fact that I do crappy things and I do beautiful things, and I am. That includes everything, and I am. So I found that was really beautifully put, because we can get so, changing our beliefs. It's, I am an addict too. I am not an addict. There's that polarity in play there. Or I am manic, or I am not manic, and trying to convince ourselves and fake it till we make it or whatever. So does that resonate with you guys at all?
Nick, you go first.
Yeah, Matt. No, sure. Yeah, massively does. I think I love that, what you read out there, and it's a great reminder just hearing it then. But because I think if it becomes this black and white thing of I'm a good person or I'm a bad person or I'm this or I'm that, it's black and white thinking, and it's that same thinking as I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose, and I'm going to, looking at life in this black and white way, which a lot of us have been conditioned to do, but it doesn't really work in the long term. So I think it's a great reminder of that's not what life's about. It's about the experience. It's about what you personally can overcome. It's about what you can deal with on that day, and it's that the gray in between. It's not the sort of black and white, and that
we are the whole
thinking.
spectrum, aren't we? We're the whole color spectrum. This is black, that's white, and there's all these colors in between, and we are all of that.
Oh, massively. And I think when I chatted with you, Ryan, I was telling you about living in New York. I'm exposed to so much of you're in the center of all the money making and chaos, and I've just met so many people where it is all about this competition and status, and I'm better and I'm this and I'm that, and it's just you're listening to it and you observe, and I'm observing that energy. And it's literally like and that's honestly, that's what it feels like when you're around it. You're like, oh my God, I just like, and you even before those people open their mouth, you walk into the room and you feel this like suffocating energy. And it makes me recoil and suppress myself to a degree when I'm around it. So I'm
how
navigating.
How do you survive in there? How do you like it? It's like going in Chernobyl and expecting not to have a third eye grow out of your forehead.
Yeah, well, I mean, you control who you spend your time with, and I just avoid, as much as I can control anyway, spending time around that. But I have been exposed to that here. But it's interesting to observe, because you just see it on such an extreme level, and it opens your eyes to how many people not willing to talk about anything else or change, or you could say this stuff to them and they might pretend to acknowledge it, but you can tell. And it's like anything, it's not judging, it's like everyone's on a different path, and But yeah, anyway, I don't know. It's a whole
But
nother
even just walking down the street, on a metaphysical level, all this energy is getting put out by every individual. So you're mindful of who you're spending your time with. But even just going to the shop to get some milk, you're still going to bump into all this energy. So I mean, if I was in that space, being an empath, I'd be fucked. I'd be wearing a suit of armor, just
Kevlar
suit.
Totally.
That's
still suit. You'd need a lot of time alone afterwards, wouldn't you? You'd need even more time to recharge.
Yeah, look, it's no, I agree with you, and I'm pretty much an empath as well, and I'm in New York for a pretty specific reason at the moment, but I don't think I mean, who knows? But I doubt I'll stay here long term because it's too much, and I'm like, well, you know what, like, why pay so much money to live like 3 times, 4 times the amount you'd pay anywhere else for somewhere that I don't even enjoy the lifestyle that you can live here. I want to be in, like, I went to when I launched the book, I couldn't get back to Australia, and I was in Oregon and Vancouver for 2 months. And the minute I got off the plane, we drove and I was like hiking a mountain, and my mind opened up and I was creative and myself again. And I was happy and I just felt amazing. And I was gone for 2 months. I was like, this, I feel so good. And then the moment I got back to New York, literally within a few hours, I was like, just things getting thrown at you. And it's a crazy place. So it's like, not good for your mental health if you're that kind of person.
But it's kind of funny as well, speaking about the, nervous system adapting, and you'll find a lot of people who grew up in New York, they love it. And it's like you take them to somewhere quiet and they're like, oh, I don't like this. I need more action. And so they go back to New York and the nervous system goes, familiar. Okay, good. Chaos.
It reminds me of the grandfather clocks has. It's the we're talking on another episode, Nick, about the grandfather clocks, and over a period of time, all the clocks will come in sync with the biggest clock. And so all these people in New York are walking around as grandfather clocks, and whether you like it or not, you will end up sort of in sync on some energetic level with the majority.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And yeah, what you said, it is. It's like these two extremes where, and a lot of the people, like one of my friends who moved here, he's one of those people that is just going from thing to thing to thing, and you talk to him, and if you don't talk at a million miles an hour and say what you need to say in the first 3 or 4 seconds, his eyes are glazing over you, you're losing his attention, he's on to the next thing. You go out for a drink, you go out for a drink with him, what's next? Where are we going next? What are we doing? And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I actually feel nauseous after about 30 seconds of it. But they love it here because it's fueling that. So it's
that reminded me of when I
feel tired thinking about this fucking stuff.
when I got off meth, because I was in that scene as a meth addict. And then I got clean and I went back because I wanted to rescue some friends. Classic move. But I remember I went back and they were in a hotel room. My ex-girlfriend, some other people. And I'm just newly spiritually awakened, no drugs. And I walk in there and I was there for like half an hour, and like it was like bugs just flying around everywhere. They're weighing up drugs. They're doing it. They're speaking 100 miles an hour, going from room to room. I'm like, this was normal to me a few weeks ago. Now it's like I feel like I'm watching something in like 3 times the speed. And I got out of there and I'm like, I've got to get myself calmed down here. It's really
when Nick was talking about it, this really weird thing happened internally, and this part of me popped up and it's like, I want to go there and teach meditation. I want to go there and just sit in the street and start meditating with all these mats and just invite people to just come and meditate and to be still for a while. My nickname's the Sultan of Still, Nick. And
he's a turtle as well, so he's a slow man in a good way.
So I just had this picture of all these meditation mats just in the middle of the street in New York, and just come on, everyone, just come and sit for 5 minutes, because I've got when I work with a lot of.
How many would sit? Come on, how many would actually sit?
No, bugger all, none. But I work with high performing businessmen a lot, and companies everywhere, and something I get them to do is to spend the first 15 minutes of every Monday morning at their desk doing nothing. And it short circuits them. They're like, what do you mean? And so just go and sit and do nothing for 15 minutes. Oh, but emails and phones and money. And anyway, those that do it come back the next week and they're laughing and pissing themselves, and they're like, what's up? And they're like, that was the most productive 15 minutes I had all week. And I'm like, why? Well, because I just got to observe things. I got to observe this and that. And I actually had a very productive day. I got home happier. I'm like, oh, how interesting. You're going to keep doing that? No, I'm too busy.
Yeah, exactly. It felt good. Yeah, it worked, but I'm not going to do
Yeah,
it anymore.
yeah. No, I can't help you much further than that.
Oh, funny.
Yeah,
Nick, tell we've only
it's so
got
true.
15 minutes left, mate. I want to hear about the book, Move Your
Yep.
Mind. Before we jump into the who it's for and what's in it, I'd love to get your experience of bringing a book to life and what that was like.
Yeah, it was a new experience for me. It was harder than I thought it would be. I mean, I knew it would be difficult, but it's a huge amount of work and it was a cathartic experience as well. But I was back in Australia after being in Vancouver at the beginning of the pandemic and signed the publishing deal pretty much as soon as I got back. And I was living at my mum and dad's place for 11 months and had this opportunity to write the book. And the timing was perfect because I didn't have much distraction, was able to really hyper focus on it. So I really enjoyed that. And, I've told my story thousands of times now, but writing it and having to really delve into certain things, it was interesting how other things came up that I hadn't thought about. And the whole process, it was really enjoyable being able to go. I mean, I interview a lot of people on the podcast, but really go into detail, looking into certain aspects of different people's lives and, sharing different stories. And it was really a great way to really distill a lot of what I've been doing and thinking about and working on into, because you have to continually refine and distill it into this book. So it was a great experience and, really rewarding and something I'd recommend to anyone in this field.
And so did it take like roughly that 11 months for it to be completed and refined and ready to go?
It took, yeah. So when we signed the deal, we did it pretty quickly because they wanted it released sort of when it was August this year. So I had about 7 months, I think it was, to get the manuscript 100% done. And I had an editor. Well, I asked them, I said, I'm not doing it unless you can provide an editor to work with me because I don't know how to write I'll write the thing. I need guidance. I don't know how to do this. So that was about 6 or 7 months of really, writing maybe 5,000-6,000 words a week and getting that to what we thought was 100%. And then when we handed that to the publishing company, it was probably another 3 or 4 months, maybe a bit more, of back and forth and them using their internal editors and refining and getting it all ready. And then the whole process of, launching and marketing it that I'm in the middle of now. So it's such a process. And by the end of it, you almost feel sick looking at it. You're like, I don't want to read this bloody thing ever again. You start obsessing about, I wonder if that word, if I just say it one bit differently, like, okay, I've got to go. This is fueling my OCD and going against the whole point of writing this thing. I just want to never look at this again. But that was the process.
What do you reckon, Nico? Is this fueling your inspiration to write a book?
Yeah,
I knew we'd circle around to this at some stage. Move your mind. It sounds like giving birth. You're pregnant for 9 months and then finally get it out of you. And you're like, what I imagine birth.
It sounds like me watching bloody Blippi and the Wiggles at the minute. You watch it like 1,000 times and you're like, fuck, I'll watch this again.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can mention it because I do have a book, or I think probably multiple books within me now, and we've just yesterday learned that we've acquired 40 acres of hinterland up in Queensland, so I'm going to take about 3 or 4 months off at some stage, hopefully next year, if I can get another practitioner in to ease my workload and dedicate that to writing the book. But be interested to talk more with you about it, to learn the process, because just the immediate block comes up for me is like there's no framework for it. It's just like, what do you put in there? And it's such an unknown for me. I'm excited about it, but taking that first step is quite challenging.
Absolutely, yeah, and congratulations on the hinterland, mate. That sounds exciting.
Nick's going the opposite to you. No one within 40 kilometers perimeter.
Can I please fly there?
I was just going to say, so we've got the place to run retreats, and we're going to do silent meditation retreats and yoga retreats, and maybe we'll do a New York unwind retreat.
New York detox.
Just for you. Yeah,
totally. I think there'd be
you've got an opening. open invite, mate. You're welcome whenever.
Yeah, no, plenty of people would need that, mate. I appreciate it. But yeah, no, I think that's great with, the book, happy to chat anytime. And it's something that, like you said, that was the main thing for me. I was like, well, I know what I want to put in this, but I don't know where to begin and how do I structure it. And you're busy with other things in life. And I found that was the way, to really have someone keeping you accountable and having that structure that no matter how busy you are, you've got to complete certain tasks every week. That's what kept me sort of on track to get the thing done. And because otherwise it's like, how long's a piece of string? When do I do it? You can spend 5 years writing and refining things, and anything creative, it's like that, I guess, because you're just like, where do you begin and end? How do you do it?
Well, yeah, Parkinson's law kicks in there. It's like if you don't, time will expand, work will expand as to fill the amount of time allocated to it. So if it's open-ended, you're just never going to get it done. But if you put a deadline on it, then you're like, all right, well, you have to surrender at some stage, like you did. You're like, oh, I've got to stop playing with the recipe.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's good, for like perfectionism can come in, whereas I think it's really about just like getting things done as well as you can in a time frame, getting it out there, learning from it, doing it again, keep doing it. And otherwise you just get stuck in what's what I find with a lot of the creative stuff I do and the acting stuff and all that kind of thing. You can get so in your head about it. So it's like just letting go of things and not really caring so much.
So true, Nick. And who is
what's in the book?
For? Yeah, who's the book for, and how's it been received so far since the launch?
So the book is, we've tried to really make it as palatable as we can. So it's for like anyone that wants to, in a really simple way, learn about mental health, but have like some really practical tools in there that are simple, not overwhelming. The opposite of overwhelming. You can sort of open it up to, we've got it into 4 main pathways. So you go into connect your mind and have some really simple stories in there that are, you can learn from, and, enjoy reading the book from beginning to end, because it's got the narrative of my story and other stories from people, from celebrities to grassroots stories and everything in between. And then having really practical things of, here's how you can learn more about this area. Here's what you can do in a simple way. And we've got guides in, how you can actually put it into practice. So, it's really targeted at anyone that's just wanting to make that first step and take ownership of their own well-being, but doesn't know where to begin. So if you pick it up, this will be a good starting point of getting you on that track before you sort of go, deeper into it.
Wonderful resource. I love it. And where you've also got the podcast, which is Move Your Mind also. I hear you've had some incredible guests that you've interviewed the last few weeks. We won't, give out who, but
for those listening at home, Ryan was a recent guest on there, and so he's blowing his own trumpet as hard as he can, as usual.
So someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it. That's true.
A wonderful resource, though, because I think a lot of people right now are. No, not the podcast, the book I'm talking about. The wonderful resource, because a lot of people now, we've got all this awareness, now, and, the last couple of years, so many more high profile people, sports people, like mental health, we've got a lot of men, especially like, okay, I've got it now, where Nick always says we've got physical health.
Mental health.
Yeah, well, he was talking about, Nick's like, if we've got a body, we've got physical health. If we've got a mind, we've got mental health. And a lot of people are realizing now, hey, I've got mental health and I need to look after it. But where do I start? And so I think these first steps, like a book like yours that can be gone through, enjoyed, practical steps are wonderful, because a lot of especially guys are not quite open early on to go, oh, I'm going to go speak to a psychologist or a therapist or someone about that. So I think these books are really important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's sort of, like you said, there's so much awareness, which is great, but it's what are practical things we can do. And because there's so much noise out there and information, a lot of people get overwhelmed just by that of, okay, but what do I do? Where do I begin? What, I know what I should do, but how do I do stuff that's applicable to my daily life? Because I've only got so much time and energy or whatever it is. So I think making it as simple as possible for a starting point is really, really important.
Praise be. I came into this space many moons ago, and if I hear one more person out there, one more advocate out there just reeling off the suicide stats or anything, or creating more awareness or anything, I'm going to start regressing if I don't work really hard. So it's to hear that there's more people out there actually going, less awareness, more education, more tools, more resources, more how to, not, there it is. So thank you, Nick. Thank you.
Where can people get the book?
Appreciate it. Thank you. So the book is available on Amazon and Booktopia and other online sites, and it's in stores in Australia. It's in a bunch of stores, but I guess most people can't physically get in there to buy it in the store right now. Hopefully soon. So that's been, one interesting thing we've had to sort of deal with launching it, but it's available in Australia and overseas now, mainly on Amazon and Booktopia. And you can go to my website as well, nickbracks.com, and it'll come up with all the links. And if you go to nickbracks.com/moveyourmind, we've got free resources there, a free PDF with a whole bunch of tools that comes with the book that anyone can download. So, that's probably the easiest place to go to just learn about it and find all the information.
Awesome, mate. Well, we know you have to jump off in a minute. So before you do, just a big thank you for coming on today. And we encourage everyone listening to go out and get the book, listen to the podcast, get in touch with your work on the website. Is there any final words for anyone out there listening to them, someone who may be struggling or wanting to look at their mental health? Is there anything that you can share based on your experience?
I'd just say, like the stuff that we've talked about, and for anyone that is struggling, reminding yourself it's okay. It's actually, like you said before, if you're a human, male or female, you're going to have issues with your physical health. You're going to have issues with your mental health. That's actually, I've never heard or met anyone that hasn't. It's part of life. Accepting that and just not having to find the perfect answer, more just if you feel like something's off, just do something. The one thing I always say that you shouldn't do is nothing. So just do anything, take that first step. That's always the hardest. And that normally it gets easier from there. So, taking that step and letting the rest unfold.
Yeah. Because doing nothing's still doing something, isn't it?
That is. Yeah. There you go.
Awesome, mate. All right, Nick, absolute pleasure talking, mate. Looking forward to speaking to you again soon. Congratulations on the book. I hope you start to say no to a bunch of things at the minute so you can look after your own energy, because we need people like you in the world doing the work that you do.
We'll see you in Agnes Water soon, mate.
Reserve a spot.
Absolutely.
Reserve a spot.
Absolutely. Keep that spot, mate. I need it. I'll be on a plane as soon as I can. But thanks for having me, guys.
No worries, Nick. See you, mate.
Appreciate it. Bye.